Hi, it's Joseline Jean-Louis Hardrick, and this is another episode of Locs Law Liberation, where we're talking to attorneys about their experience with their natural hair, including locks, braids, twists, and other natural hairstyles while they've been law students, lawyers, professionals, just to hear their story. So now we have Suzanne Decopain. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hello, Joseline. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad we got to finally meet up and get this done. I really wanted you to be a part of it. I've seen you had some beautiful hairstyles. You have your beautiful cropped short hair right now, which I love. I wish I could wear my hair like that. I just shave it all off, but I don't got the right head for it. You've also had like purple extensions. You've had it long, you've had it short. I remember you had new headshots and you had this bone straight. I mean, you've done everything with your hair, right? So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But let's start now with what you do now. How long have you been an attorney? Some biographical information.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. I'm excited that you're even doing this. So you've definitely been a voice for a lot of us. And a little bit about my background. I've been practicing law for 15 years. I work in Tampa. I represent corporations, and that's the gist of it. I do have to go to court a lot, so that has become interesting over the years. So versus like a transactional attorney where you don't really have to go to court or interact with a lot of people. I'm a litigator and I am very active in local bar associations. So I have changed my style more than I can remember. So I'm happy to be here and talk to you about that.
Okay, great. Well, let's go back to kind of early on. We're both of Haitian backgrounds. So I know you had the barrettes and the ribbons when your hair was natural. What was your hair like when it was younger? And then was there ever a transition to like the relaxed hair or some other kind of chemical or heat processing?
As a kid, from what I remember, and of course, our parents would retell stories all the time. So I had a lot of hair and it wasn't always manageable. So I think that's how I transitioned into getting perms at a fairly young age, just so that my mom can manage it. And ever since then, growing up, I would consistently get perms. So my hair was always straight and pretty long, definitely past my shoulders. Going into law school, I maintained that same permed hairstyle.
So tell us about your first perm, because I have the burn scars still from my first
Oh,
perm.
wow.
What was it like for you? Did you feel like this is a moment I'm going to remember, or was it just another day in a new hairstyle?
I was pretty young. I think I was maybe 10 or 12. And I just remember going to some like Caribbean woman's house in her garage. And I remember she told my mom, like, please don't bring her back, because I had that much hair. It took her that long to put the perm.
What? She said?
She said, don't bring her back. So that's my earliest memory of being introduced to the relaxer world. Since then, I'm pretty sure she let me come back. But as I grew older, I actually learned how to do it myself. So I would put my own relaxer. As soon as I figured out how to do it, I would just do it. And that's just what I did.
Oh, wow. I used to try. It was a no, because like I said, I get burned every single time I got a relaxer. And then I finally had enough money to get my hair done at Dominican Hairstyles, because the Dominicans know how to do it. You in and out, those $35, right? But we're talking about, Suzanne, you learned how to do this before YouTube tutorials. We're talking about some really strong chemicals putting in your hair that if you mess that up, you're losing your hair and maybe some skin. So that took some skill. I don't think I've ever seen you in straight hair. I'm trying to remember when we met, if your hair was straight.
Yes. When I first moved to Tampa in 2013, I was still doing perms, but around that time I was trying to transition. So I didn't get as many perms, and then I started going to the Dominicans to get the blowout. So I was still having a straight do, but without the relaxer.
So at any time did you ever feel some type of way about your straight hair as you're becoming a lawyer? You're starting to think, like you said, you want to transition. It sounds like it's after you've been practicing a little bit. What are your thoughts about that when it comes to how it will impact your career?
I guess fortunately, I never really thought about how it would impact my career because I just did it. And if someone has something to say, then it is what it is. Early on during the transition, my family probably had more of an opinion about my transition. It didn't really impact my work so much, but surprisingly, later on, like within the last couple years, probably the last 5 years, I've had moments where it has impacted my work. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was going to go back a little because I know you were a prosecutor when you first came out of law school. So that tends to be very conservative because you're in court a lot.
Yes.
And you got to worry about judges and juries who usually don't look like you, right? And you want to be taken seriously. You're like me, you look younger because I've been practicing like 15 years. And before I let the gray show, everyone's like, what? How old are you? You know, and you get that. So there's all these layers we already got to deal with. And we want the hair to be the last thing we have to worry about. So now you're at a firm. Is it a mid-sized firm? Is that would be accurate, or a large law firm?
Right now, I would say a mid-sized firm, but I've done the whole gamut.
Yeah, you've done the big law,
big law,
insurance defense, you've done criminal litigation, you've done some other things. You do also do administrative hearings, even though you said you're in court a lot, but you're also in these hearings. You used to do housing work and represent people in different types of subsidized housing. So you're dealing with a lot of different audiences who are judging you just based on the way you look.
Yes.
Besides the last 5 years, the change that's been happening, were there any early incidents of people trying to touch your hair or commenting on your hair?
I guess when I transitioned from government to civil, I was lucky enough to join a minority and woman-run firm. So most of the partners at the firm were people of color. So when I transitioned and moved to Tampa, I didn't really face those types of what we would see in the workplace. Probably when I left that firm, that's when I started to see more, it was more noticeable. So things like coming to the office and people sort of going out of their way to see like, oh, what new hairstyle or do you have this week? You know, those types of things you really don't, you just let it roll off your shoulder because in some ways it's innocent, but it's like, I'm just trying to work. Can you just leave me alone? Like, why do you have to make a big deal of my hair? But I mean, it is different. And you're right. I used to do a lot of color. I was not shy about any of my styles. So it's like, did I ask for it? I don't know. But they were really, I'm not going to say the firm, but mostly men would go out of their way just to see my hair.
Wow.
And yeah, a little distracting.
Right. And it's interesting because they say we're the ones distracting them. I'm like, no, stay focused. Like,
yes.
I'm not distracted, right? You get a haircut, I don't get distracted by it. Or if you dye your hair one day or stop dyeing it. But there's definitely a sense of like, you feel like you're on exhibit, right? I like to say it like I'm an animal in the zoo and you're watching me. Don't give me that feeling. We're all human co-workers. We exist in all these different forms. Let's keep it moving.
Yes.
Any judges ever say anything to you when you go to court?
I had a judge, not in this jurisdiction, but I was on my way to vacation. Actually, like the next morning, I was flying out to go somewhere. So I had my birthday cornrows.
I knew it was going to be cornrows.
feed in. I mean, they were beautiful. And the motion I was going to argue was the same exact motion that my colleague argued 3 weeks earlier. Same motion that everyone has argued in that jurisdiction. And it's pretty much guaranteed we know what the outcome's going to be. My case, no different. I showed up. I guess I was just looking too fly for the judge. And she denied my motion. And everything was the same. She didn't have a reason, but I could just feel like she felt that I don't know if she felt I was disrespecting her or disrespecting the court with my hairstyle, but She didn't have a basis. She denied it. And I left on a Friday. I think when I got back on Sunday, she reversed herself because she knew she wasn't following the law. She had no reason. So I got back to work on Monday because as I'm going to the airport, I had to tell my supervisor, like, hey, I just lost this motion. And it's so weird. Really have no way to explain this. And he's like, don't worry about it. Just come back and we'll talk about it. Because it was basically appealable. And no, by the time I got back, she had already, I guess she really thought about it and she reversed herself. But I mean, it wasn't said, but I felt it. I felt like that. There's a look. There's a look.
Which is strange. And you're about to go on vacation. So how are you feeling now? Going on vacation, losing this motion that no one ever loses.
No one ever loses this motion. I just couldn't worry about it. I'm like, well, I'll deal with it when I get back. And if the client wants to appeal, we'll appeal. But yeah, I mean, nothing negative in court. Like no one has just blatantly said something in court, but at work for sure.
So let's get into that. Because that's the thing with right? That's why I'm writing this paper. Like everyone's like, what is the big deal with Black women in the hair? Well, this is the big deal. Like literally I came with a different hairstyle and all of a sudden you're denying my emotions. Nothing else is different. And then they give you a look. There's the pause. There's people stopping you. Like, where are you going? Like in court. Like, I'm here all the time. What are we doing? Right? Like those things. Mm-hmm. They add up and add up and add up, and they add this additional layer of stress on top of all the other layers of stress. So now let's get to what people were saying. What were some of the things you've heard in the workplace?
I would say the most offensive thing that I heard was from a managing partner, felt the need to take the time to talk about hair. I just out of nowhere, and one of her comments was, I just don't understand how you can keep that, meaning the weave, in your hair for so long without washing your hair. And I really didn't even know what to say other than, I'm like, is there anything else that we need to talk about this case or the caseload? And I exited left because I already knew if I stayed longer, it would have been a whole nother conversation.
Well, it's just you and the managing partner.
Oh, yes. And it's just very comfortable. She was very comfortable. She was like, yeah, I have friends and I have this. And I just couldn't imagine not being able to wash my hair. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right.
It's like, I don't need you to understand.
I'm good. But it was low key, like a compliment. Like she was trying to compliment my new hairstyle, but it didn't work out well.
Yeah. Okay. And was that within the last 5 years that you were saying that you've heard more of it? Wow. Okay. So what do you think is happening in the last 5 years? And we could talk a little more about some other things you heard. Is it post-COVID? Is it post-George Floyd? Is it the DEI stuff?
I think in all sort of environments, I think people want to be comfortable about relating to you, but not really understanding how offensive it could be. This was sort of during COVID. And at that point, I'm like, I really just hope I could just stay home and just not have to deal with this, because it could have just been a simple, oh, you look nice today. That's it. I never reciprocated what I thought about how she looked or anything, but it's it's that missing piece. Just keep it, we're at work, just keep it simple. And what's interesting is that the type of law that we did at that firm was employment defense.
Okay, so side note, we know the employment lawyers just act up the most. It's like y'all know the law the most, but y'all act up the most.
I don't understand.
Stay in the news about doing horrible things to each other at work. I'm like, you're employment lawyers. Yeah, it's interesting because I love employment law. I really wanted to practice it. I got to do it as a law clerk, so I wasn't practicing it, but you get into the details and get through the research. And I'm like, people just stay acting up. Just keep it simple, like you said. What are some other incidents you came? And I'd like to say you're so chill that you are the person that should be doing all the stuff with the hair. Because you're like, you don't like it, oh well. Other people are freaking out. You don't know how many young law students and young women lawyers who come up to me and basically ask me for permission to wear their hair natural, or ask me what did I do to get permission, or how do I show up like that and not worry. And I'm looking at them like, in this day and age, we're still doing this? Because when I was in law school, too, Black women lawyers especially were telling me that. But I'm like, it's 2020, 4, 25. We still worried about this, but there are still students worried. So what are some other things you heard and how did you deal with it?
Maybe talk about like even this transition, right? So I wasn't always super, super short. And that has gotten a lot of comments, even from our own people, because it is drastic and it is, like, why aren't you growing your hair? And it used to be so pretty when it was long and all of this. So that's been, and I just never let any of that bother me. And it's sort of just how I feel. I can't really tell you what really started it all was I didn't want to get perms anymore. I have a good friend, I'll name drop, Dr. Llanos. She does a lot of breast cancer research, and she's put out some studies about relaxers connected to cancer. And we were like junior high friends. But when I moved to Tampa and I'm now really being on my own, I just wanted to figure out ways to better take care of myself. So stopped taking but then my hair was just getting out of control. I'm like, I can't manage this. Every Saturday I would religiously go to get a blowout. I'm like, I can't keep up with this. And then I just did the big chop, but it was nothing like this. And it just, to me, it's fun. And I always work hard and just do what I do at work. I really do try to mind my own business, but it's just something about hair. I can't explain it, but it really excites people.
It does. I mean, in the paper, I'm going through the research of Locs, of Black women in America having to cover their hair during the slavery period. And there's always been an obsession about controlling our hair. And it's kind of like we finally are, I think, at a meaningful majority of Black women who are like, no, we're going to do what we want. And if we're having relaxers or extensions that are straight, it's because we want that look right now, but we're not tying it to things like beauty and worth and value. When I did the big chop, it was 2000. And people looked at me like the same way they looked at you, like, what do you, and it was family members, what do you do? And they start making assumptions about what are you turning into? And it's like, it's not that serious. So there's the first layer of women in hair, and then there's Black women, and then our hair and what we choose to do with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're gonna have incorporate some pictures so people can see, because I have a picture of you, but like basically a faux hawk or a mohawk kind of thing with the golden tips. And then there was the picture when you started your own firm, you had headshots and you decided to wear your hair straight. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me about that? Was there a specific decision? You just wanted a different look? What was your thought process?
Just a different look, especially with the new firm, really like taking pictures and all that. No reason. I really have no rhyme or reason as to how I come up with this. And right now, it's definitely more for convenience. I mean, I love being able to wake up and like put some gel and that's it. And brush it down, put some gel, and I don't have to be hours at the salon. So it works well with my schedule if I'm trying to make my hours, and that's just one less thing that I have to worry about. That's how I look at it. Will it come back? I don't know.
The billions of dollars that is in the hair industry just for Black women, the hundreds of hours Black women spend in salons every year, trying to get their hair look a certain way. And I mean, I stopped coloring because the same thing, health reasons. I was allergic and it was just getting worse and worse. And I'm just kind of like, why am I doing this? And I would spend every couple Saturdays trying to catch it. And I'm like, I don't got time for this. We're trying to take over the world and do great things, and we can't be doing that if we're stuck doing our hair. Any words of wisdom? How do we get some of this kind of like, I'm just gonna be me, Suzanne wonderfulness? How do we encourage the young sisters out there to kind of embrace that and just let the stuff slide off their shoulders as much as possible?
I think it has something to do with confidence. I think because I was able to start at the prosecutor's office the first 3 years of practicing law, it really gave me that level of confidence. And they didn't require that I look a certain way or had my hair a certain way, I would say that was more from law school because they really pushed like this look like, oh, you need to wear pantyhose and you need to wear black and this. And I think they even gave you like a book with like sample like people, like how they looked. If I find it, I'll send it to you. So leaving law school and not knowing what to expect, I was like, well, I have to look professional. And because I've already relaxed my hair for the last almost 20 years, 25 years, that was just natural for me. Like, okay, well, I need to look good for work. I wore black a lot, tried to cover up, make sure I wasn't showing my shade, just tried to be very manicured. And so when I left the prosecutor's office and came to Tamba, I still wanted to make sure I looked like the firm part, very manicured, but it just evolved. But when I came to Tampa, I felt very comfortable in the courtroom. Anything that they gave me, I was like, oh, I got this. And it just never really came up. So I think if we're able to instill a lot more confidence in our fellow attorneys or soon to be attorneys, I think that would help a lot, because at the end of the day, if you're serving your client and you're getting the results, that's what matters. Now, it's all the other little nuances that we don't see and we can't really address that might impact how you're able to service your client. But that's why we have people like you, Joseline, and mentors. And so I think the community will definitely help, and other people sharing their experiences. Maybe it would have been different if I just came straight out of law school and joined a civil firm and just went that route, or became a clerk, or who knows where I could have ended up. And now, after opening my firm, I wish someone helped me.
That's so true though, because even though I was at a firm, I had a practice that was similar to yours, where I was in court a lot, every week. All these little motions, all this, and I had a lot of pro se people. So it was like the civil version of criminal litigation, like in misdemeanor court, where you just have all these little things all the time. You have to learn to manage, and you just get super comfortable in the court. Like, you're not gonna come to me any old way. You're not gonna make me scared. Like, I'm not scared of you. I can do a trial, I can do an evidentiary hearing, I can do a motion, I'm ready. Give me the file right before. I also did the prosecutor's office as an extern, and they gave me my own caseload. They treated me like a state attorney because they were one person short, and they're like, here you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had cases M through K, something like that. It was like a third. It was a third of the caseload. I can't remember. But yeah, I remember they were one person short, and they're like, we just won't give you that person's caseload. I learned real quick. Mm-hmm. Right, but you're right. It is that confidence, because you're just not gonna worry about those little things, even though they can have a big impact. You learn that that's their loss.
Yeah.
You don't want to hire me because the way my hair looked. You're trying to deny my emotion over my hair. We getting appealed, and then you're gonna have to explain. And I was the type of lawyer, I'd ask a judge if I know there's no basis. I'm like, judge, for the record, what's the basis for your denial? They hated that, but I'm like, you're gonna give a basis. You ain't just gonna deny my motion. But again, confidence, right? So what about clients? Because I've had a lot of people talk to me on the phone, fine. On the email, fine. I show up, all of a sudden not fine. I'm like, same old me on the email and the phone. Any comments from clients or people like that?
When I was at another firm, not so much our own clients, because I think our client base was pretty diverse. It usually was the other side. When you show up for deposition and it's like, oh, and then they make a lot of assumptions like, oh, well, you must be that kind of a lawyer. And especially during COVID and George Floyd and just all of this extraness, because they think that you're a certain way because of how you look and your hair. So you just do you, like, you maintain your composure and you do your job, but you just feel it. You just feel it. And in other areas of law that I've practiced, many of the clients look like me. So it's almost like the other end of the spectrum, where it's something to talk about or it's a time to relate. And like, oh, I wish I could, like you said, I wish I could go that low. Like, I probably hear that every week.
Well, you have a beautiful face for it. It's not every face that it works for. Like you and Rena, Oh, look so gorgeous with the short hair. I've done the short hair, so I know. I'm not guessing. I know what I look like. And I remember I was talking to another lawyer who practiced in like different county. And we were like, oh, I need a place to get my hair blown out. I moved. And then I had this great person in Clearwater I used. She said, who, Mida? I'm like, yeah. She said, I use Mida too. I'm like, we both are in different counties going all the way to Clearwater to get our hair blown out by this one Dominican stylist. And I'm like, you know what? Too much. Too much.
Yeah.
But at least we could have that conversation. And it's like, okay, the struggle is real. And we're creating, again, that community and an understanding and a inquisitiveness that's genuine, as opposed to just like trying to make comments, random comments. So any last words for us, Suzanne?
Just enjoy the ride. We're only here once, and I think whatever makes you the most comfortable, you know, to our aspiring attorneys or to our young attorneys, it's all about your comfort levels. And if you're worried or you have some reservation, that's why you have resources like us, and talk to us about it, because it might not even be as big of a deal as you might think it would be. Both Joseline and I have been in all like forums, and you know, Joseline is very respected. I mean, there isn't a judge that wouldn't want, I mean, we're probably looking at a future judge here. So it's all about comfort and what you like. But I think we're at a point where more and more the legal profession is recognizing that we know what we're doing, and we're always going to be professional. So that's usually never the issue, and we're capable. So now it's our turn to be ourselves, if that's what you want to be. Yeah, I am for that 100%.
Yes, Locs, law, and liberation, right? Liberating from all these notions and just loving the skin you're in and letting the confidence shine through. So thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you, Joseline.